stick, we gotta lay it down, we gotta stay, we gotta break your bitch coming up.
This is the Triplefour podcast, number one Nick Swardson fan podcast. We're going to talk about all of Nick Swardson's best bits.
I fucking love Nick Swardson.
He's totally gonna get his dick fucked.
Mostly because we have the same name. I am Nick Swardson. I didn't tell you guys.
All your favorite comedians, Nick Swardson, Nick Offerman, Nick Macaroni.
I just pulled off
that's
his
a real
mask, and there's just a lot of blood and skin. It's a strange mask.
Is this a Nick Swardson bit that I'm not aware of? What's going on?
Just I tried to unmask Nick because he looks a little bit different than the traditional Nick Swardson, but apparently there's just a bloody corpse underneath him.
Sounds
Surprise!
Like... Anyway.
I'm just skin and bones.
Aren't we all? Ooh. Let's open the discussion. I want to talk about a few movies that I've seen recently. You guys might find it right. They suck. Some new stuff. I went to the Tivoli for the first time.
Oh, over
That's
in the
cool.
Loop.
Yeah.
That's cool. I actually went for the first time last October, I think it was, when
For the
actually
Static Shock
for
thing?
the Static.
I've never been myself, but I do know a lot of Asian girls with ripped up denim jackets that frequent it all the time.
So I don't know if you saw, he's got a Netflix deal now. Like, he straight up, they flew him out, and he
For the Static Shock movie?
Yeah.
Or? Wow, crazy.
Yeah, he's doing,
With,
he's
the
doing
Static
it.
Shock?
He's doing it.
All right, well...
Like, Netflix just gave him the green light. They were like, we love you. Like,
make a Static Shock thing?
they're like,
or
you're
they
not
just
even,
make something else?
you're not even 24, and you've done all this, and you did this with, like, bone... Like, just bare bones. He found
Damn.
all his own people, all his own actors.
Wait a
and
second,
production-
I've been
Who is
doing
this?
this. Wait a second. Anyway, so the goal, though, when I went to the Tivoli, I was thinking we should play here, though. Darkness on the Edge of Town, check it out. It'll be out by the end of the year. Tivoli, St. Louis, Del Mar Loop, etc.
Fucking awesome.
Right. Got to make a good movie first. I guess.
Well, we got a solid intro.
But I went to see a movie called Climax, which is directed by a guy named Gaspar
Sounds
Noé.
hot.
I mean, to some, it may be. Have you seen Enter the Void?
Didn't watch the whole movie, but yeah, I know.
I didn't know they
I'm
made
familiar.
a movie about my feelings. It's just the
Enter
daily. It's
I think I got past the whole part where he like ODs in the toilet, and then
Yeah. So the same
Well, that's
director
comedy.
of that movie. Now that's entertainment.
Yeah, literally in the toilet.
That movie is out of control.
It was pretty wild
Yeah.
from
Well,
what
yeah,
I
like-
saw.
I mean, speaking of ODing in the toilet, my buddy Joe was telling me just the other day about how he had a dream where he's like in the Alice in Wonderland world, you know, but instead of like coming to on the family's property, like came to and they're just in a Red Roof Inn hotel and she's ODing on the toilet.
Oh man.
Cool.
I mean, hallucinogens.
Red
you know?
Roof Inn.
Yeah, that's a special place. You know, you can.
That's pretty much what that scene was like.
Yeah. And they lock her in a cage. And...
Damn.
So, Dan, you got the floor.
Excuse me. We have a special guest today that I haven't introduced.
Oh yeah, Andy Miami's here, aka Andy Darlith. That's his legal name. We won't give him his government name. We'll call him Andy Miami.
Hey.
As John Cherry would say, don't call me by my government name.
No, I apologize. This guy's
What?
kind of giving me a Tallahassee type introduction. I'm very Miami.
Oh, he's
but
much
at the
more important
most,
than that.
You know, you might be Jackson.
I'm
I'm gonna
to
go with
Jackson.
Fort Lauderdale. Because they love me. They love my Instagram. They commented on one of my posts.
Oh,
They said, we love Fort Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale as a whole commented on Yvonne sex.
Yes, they did.
They say.
They said,
Fortnite.
we love Fort Lauderdale.
Fortnite Lauderdale.
It was the most random thing. It was a page on Instagram called, Fort Lauderdale. And they just commented on one of my... It had nothing to do with Florida.
the
And they
city
just-
of Fort Lauderdale.
The city of Fort Lauderdale. And they commented on one of my posts on Instagram and just said, we love Fort Lauderdale! Exclamation point. And I was just like, what
they only have one goal. I mean, they're just trying to spread the news.
trying to
What's that
promote-
like City of St. Louis or like State of Missouri page that was just trolling everybody, like acting like they were super original, but just like talking like the state bird of Missouri is meth. Like, you know,
Yeah,
the state
like
flower is also
Missouri
meth.
statistics or something.
Well, no, it just looked like in a super official like government page.
I think it's like the city of St. Louis.
like the City of St. Louis. Like they got that page and made it more popular than the
something
City
like that,
of
or it's like
St.
St.
Louis.
Louis County or something.
Yeah,
like that.
more
Yeah,
popular than their
I know the
actual
one you're
page.
talking about.
And then they just like enraged every white woman that looks like she lives in your neighborhood. You know, like they just thought it was real. Like they thought it was like absolute, and like people from the government were actually like doing these things, like legit. Like the state bird is meth. The state flower is also meth. You know,
Classic
Just,
joke. They really got us Missourians with that one.
Oh man.
And you know what you can find in Missouri is the Tivoli Theater and the Delmar Loop, where I saw the film Climax. You might find this interesting. If you liked Enter the Void, okay, this movie is it takes place in France at a dance academy. It's like 20
France
a France dance
Academy.
Yes.
Cool.
Whoa.
It's like 15 to 20 characters who are all, I think, real dancers because
I thought you meant
they-
the script.
wait, what?
15 to 20 characters.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, there's 15 to 20 characters in the movie. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
But they're all like dancers or like the actors are dancers. I don't know what the joke was, so I'm just gonna move on.
I mean characters like
they're characters
type- no,
slash
like,
dancers.
like
Oh,
like,
there's only
the
15
whole
letters.
script
in
is
this
yeah.
I think
Come
most
on.
of it. I think most of it was
That was a
improvised.
good joke.
Fuck me. Anyway,
I think they're getting
Alright,
pretty
I'll let you
serious.
anyway, the plot of the movie was it's these people at a dance academy and they're having a party after the rehearsal, and they have a big bowl of punch which is spiked with LSD. And the second half of the movie is a 45-minute single take shot
Wow.
of all of the characters like losing their minds.
Did they actually spike with LSD for the movie? Like, because
I don't know. That sounds like something they do, but
I had a friend, like, you know, not
If
to
you're
go
gonna
into
do a
too much
45-minute
detail, I won't say his actual name, but he had a birthday party and several parties afterwards where you'd go there. It was at this place called the Beaver Dam, like downtown, I think. Or no, the Angry Beaver. And, you know, you'd go there for his birthday and people were like, you know, be careful, like, don't drink the punch. They legitimately put, like, a sheet of acid in the punch, and I'll just say it was delicious. Like, it was a great birthday party.
this was not as fun party.
Oh,
The
yeah,
movie
they're
descends
freaking
into
out.
like violence and
Chaos.
chaos and sex and
So
everything.
more like a Charles Manson LSD, not Love Jug at the
Yeah.
festival.
Yeah.
You know, we
No, like
just did a bunch of acid.
you're
and then-
having a bad dream.
Oh, okay.
A bad dream.
Nightmare.
Like that.
It's my favorite Eric Andre bit where he just like
That
we
is
used
a
to
good
dose the retarded girl in the neighborhood and just like wrap a circle around her and just yell nightmare, nightmare, nightmare. Actually cured her retardation.
So yeah, that was something. I thought it like could have been edgier, maybe. It's just my review. But I have a friend.
Void?
No, the Climax movie.
Oh. was thinking the wrong
Because
movie.
like that filmmaker is this guy who's like always talking about like I'm really getting at the psychosexual human experience. Like he's like
Thinks he's
really
what
edgy.
he's
doing
not.
it for you.
It's just
I mean, he's doing
it's
some
just like,
like
a dull
He thinks he's
stepsister
doing
porno.
a service.
there's some pretty heinous stuff in the movie, but it's yeah.
But it's like, is it like just overdone in your opinion, or just like
No, I think it was underdone. Like, I felt like there was stuff that was like... I'll give you an example of one thing that happens in the movie, because I think you guys might find this, like, fun to watch. But, like, I have a friend who this is, like, one of his new favorite movies. But,
Is it available on...
it'll be on... It's an A24 movie, so
Okay.
it'll be
So
on
probably on
Amazon
Amazon.
by the end of the year, probably.
Okay.
I'll give you an example of one thing that happens in the movie. The dance teacher is there, and her son is with her at this dance academy, staying like overnight. And she's like, at the beginning, she's sort of like, "See, look, I'm a good mother. Like, you know, your father, he's a piece of shit, but I'm a good mother. You're with me. We're having a good time, right?" And then, like, halfway through the movie, after everybody's starting to lose their mind, the camera just pans over, and the kid has, like, snuck out of bed and gone downstairs and taken a drink of the punch. And then the teacher, his mother, locks him in a room to protect him. But then it turns out it's like an electrical room with like
Binding of Isaac type stuff.
It's
You know?
like, yeah, it's like horrible.
Wow.
Like, but like that is probably one of the more like intense elements of it. But it's only it's only like a few brief moments of the movie. A lot of it is just guttural screaming. Like it's like 45 minutes.
See, I'm
of
into
screaming.
that. I like guttural screaming.
Well, there you go. You probably love this movie. Yeah, a friend of mine has pretty much declared it a perfect movie that he is absolutely in love with. So
Perfect.
He's never been on Rotten Tomatoes before.
Yeah. Red, if you're listening, fuck you. Anyway, so that was one thing. I also saw the new Motley Crue biopic, The Dirt.
I was watching
Speaking of
footage of
Nick's-
Motley Crue the other day. And,
Speaking of Nick Swartzen bits, you know, he's got that one where he's just like, you know, I used to think that, I think it was like Motley Crue, he's just like, I used to think I was like a badass, you know, I'd go to the bar and drink like 30 beers, and it's like, Nicky Six drank heroin from a fire hose, you know?
It was bad. It was a bad movie.
It sounds horrible.
It was a lot like Bohemian Rhapsody, but worse somehow. It was like
Probably because like Queen
Was the mustache off?
Yeah, I don't know. It was so hokey, like you could tell that everybody's wearing wigs type of thing, you know? Like it felt like a high school theater
So it was actually
version.
like hair metal.
Whoa.
Just like a drag show at an under-established bar.
Yeah, it was very it was very what's the word? What's the word I'm looking for? It was disingenuous.
Disingenuous and
Just like it felt like they were trying to like Motley Crue's fucking cool, man, fucking badass, and then all these characters are like, I'm Nicky Six. What if I hope I don't overdose at some point? And it's like I don't know. It's like every line of dialogue is incredibly like on the nose, and I don't know. It sucked.
I had a friend that like hyped up a super cool movie that he was supposed to be filming. It was supposed to be about like a rave, you know. And I know you guys like aren't really into the electronic scene, but just like imagine like someone like put it in like the metal scene, for example. Imagine someone that's like so out of touch that they think like Metallica is the best metal band ever, and that's like what they're basing the culture around, you know. It was just like the worst acting, the worst everything. I showed up, he's like, we're gonna have 100 people there. 5 people were there, like people were like screaming their lines, like it was, the floor was sticky. Like it was terrible.
This brings up a good point. Metallica, where do we stand on Metallica?
Rave Kids. What about that?
Rave Kids.
No. Metallica, I never been a super huge fan. That was actually one of the first albums I ever owned was the Black Album.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know...
But that's like the point exactly that I'm trying to make. It's like, you know, when you're into a genre of music and you're really into it, like the first album you own generally isn't the album that you then appreciate later. It's the first thing that you hear about,
right?
Because it's so out there. But once you actually like dive in, and
exactly,
get
that's what I'm saying. I was very young at the time. I was
subgenre.
maybe 12, 13 years old when I had that, and then, you know, now I could give a fuck. Like, I was a Slayer kid. I fucking love Slayer. I would scream at people out of the bus window.
Mm-hmm.
I got my
But then
bus
you
driver
grew
got
up.
mad at me for yelling Slayer. No, I still love Slayer.
Yeah, I fuck with
But
Slayer.
it's a different kind of.
Oh, which actually
love.
brings up a good point. Something I wanted to bring up. Fucking Bill Burr had Les Claypool on his podcast this last week.
Bilber.
Bill Bill Burr, if you're out there,
Bill
love you.
Bill Burr is listening to this right now.
Bill Burr's
Yeah.
probably listening to this right now. Anyway, you had Les Claypool on there, which fucking that I never thought would happen to me. It's just such a weird meeting of minds, in my opinion. But Les Claypool announced that they are going to play the last leg of Slayer's final U.S. tour.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just, like, blown away by that. I'm like, fucking Primus and Slayer? This fucking...
They go to so many different kinds of things.
I
They
know.
cross over to so much, because you'll go to, like, a hippie festival, and, you know, you'll have some of the older heads being there, like, yeah, Primus fucking sucks, you know? And it's like... That's still one of my favorite phrases from, like, a band, because all the young people are like, be respectful. They're like, no, fuck you, you don't get it. Primus fucking sucks,
Okay, so
dude.
the Black Album was one of the first albums I ever owned, along with Jet, but...
Jet?
Jet.
Like the band
Like,
Jet?
Do You Want to Be My Girl?
Oh, okay.
Jet, yeah. But Primus, Greatest Hits, They Can't All Be Zingers, that was the first album that I ever owned that, like, I was in, like, that got me hooked on music. Like, that's the album that got me into music, was Primus.
I'll say I made a turnaround with my music, because, you know, my mom, like, you know, she was, like, one of those parents that would, like, lock you away. And, like, when I was 5, now I'll say this on whatever live air that we're on, but the first concert that I went to was a Ricky Martin show. And I'm 5 in kindergarten, and everybody's kind of like, why are you bringing this child here? And I don't really remember that much, but apparently I'm standing on my chair singing all of the lyrics
Were
to,
you
like,
living
Ricky
La
Martin.
Vida Loca?
Yes. This song, Devil Ray, living the Vida Loca.
Basically.
About
Basic
the
as fuck.
Black Album thing.
Yeah.
I personally think there is some value in that, like, entry point kind
Oh,
of
yeah,
stuff.
absolutely.
Like, I
Yeah.
think there's some respect to be given.
Yeah, no, so, dude, Metallica had some great fucking albums.
Ride the Lightning, classic.
Yeah, fucking
Yeah.
Justice for All, like fucking.
And like in the electronic, it's like those like bass nectar type of. It's like those like musics that like people all kind of love, but they just like kind of like hate on at the same time, you know? Because it's just like really, if you like a genre, you just kind of like dive into it and you explore and you look for things in like your local scene that are good, like
Yeah.
surrounding areas. And you know, people that really love a genre, they just like try and support things that aren't yet supported and like shed light on them and try and like bring them around a little bit more. And I feel like that's what's really liking a specific style of music is. It's not liking something because everybody else likes it, you know, it's just actually liking it because it's genuinely good. You think it's good and you want other people that haven't heard it to also hear it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hey, recommend to that.
Yeah. You said that the Primus Greatest Hits was the album that got you into music. I would say that for Dark Side of the Moon for me.
That was another one of the first ones that I owned.
Yeah.
And I did, don't get me wrong, like I loved those first albums that I had, but they didn't have the kind of impact that Primus, like Primus was different. Literally, like their music's different to the
Yeah.
point where I heard that and it intrigued me to the point of this is what else is out there?
How many
you know?
puppies
Yeah.
do you even have?
Too many. Way too many. It's beginning to be a problem.
Yeah, I know. I thought the gerbils were an issue, but the puppies.
Yeah, I mean, the one album that I really loved that I've seen, like, I still respect a lot of this stuff that,
Anyway,
there
there goes Dan just blindly clicking at things again.
the classic FL Studio cancel recording button. I was gonna say, the one album that I really loved that I've since, like, flipped on, because a lot of times I think, like I said, I have respect for the stuff that got me into things or that led me
Is
things.
it Weezer?
No, it's not Weezer, because I still...
Okay, I can appreciate Weezer.
Green
you
Day?
know,
Is
like,
it Green Day?
It is Green Day.
Oh!
I was gonna say American
Ding, ding,
Idiot.
ding.
I loved American Idiot when I was like 10. You
It took
know,
me 2 tries.
and then and then I was, but I listened to it like a few
Just
years
fuck.
ago. I listened to
Sister connection.
American Idiot like a few years ago, and I was like, this is horrible. Like, I can't believe this. Like, I was like dismayed.
Did you feel like an American Idiot?
I felt like a big old American moron. And the 21st Century Breakdown album, the follow-up to American Idiot, was even worse. It's just... Which that one I even didn't
I don't
necessarily
even
think was
know
great.
if I even heard that.
Yeah, you don't need to. Did you ever hear that song 21 Guns? That was a big hit. Yeah.
Maybe.
I remember they played like time of your life for like our graduation and everything,
Good
and like
riddance.
at the time, like, you know, we just thought that was like
Parentheses,
super
time of your
impactful, but no, it's just like low-key garbage for real. But
21 Guns was used in Transformers 2.
Oh.
This is pretty much sums up what Green Day became. 21 Guns, it's like, there's a scene in Transformers 2 where it's just like, Megan Fox is like fixing a motorcycle, and the shot is just her ass, just like across the whole screen, and it's just Green Day playing subtly in the background.
God bless America.
It's like,
The fuck?
yeah.
You bringing that, you bringing up Transformers too.
Yeah,
Oh man, you're gonna get me on a tangent here
because it's your favorite movie of all
about
time.
Transformers because I fucking love them. Look. No, I was actually gonna say, it's just you made me think of Shia LaBeouf, and that kind of reminded me of the Shia LaBeouf video that came out,
Like the
like
performance
the play
thing? Yeah.
performance thing, where it's just him sitting in the crowd, like,
Yeah.
and that made me think of that kind of pathway of that super meta kind of performance art thing, like being John Malkovich.
Uh-huh.
There was that very much a lot of that. They didn't even like. I don't think they broke the fourth wall in that movie, but
Well, I mean, I think the concept in general implies that, like, the non-diegetic world, like our actual, like, real world of John Malkovich existing,
yeah,
is brought into the film. So I think that is kind of meta.
yeah.
Sorry. Go on.
No, you kind of yeah.
I
mean,
ruined your whole point.
it really wasn't a point. I was just kind of.
So, you know, I was like saying I kind of under a rock, like as far as like actors and movies and everything. Like even growing up, I really didn't pay attention to like individuals in a band, like that actor in a movie. Like shit you not, like 3 days ago, I just found out Keanu Reeves was the one that was in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Like I had no idea that was
They
him.
just got renewed, or they're doing a third
Yeah,
one.
no,
Yeah,
they're doing
Bill
that
and Ted
third
3.
movie, and I'm like kind of excited for that. But like, if you really think about it, like if you didn't like pay attention to him as a kid, it kind of makes sense because he does not like what he plays in that movie to what he played after. Like it's just a completely different type of person. And
Yeah.
just like it like makes sense like once I saw it,
Really
but I just
serious
like
John Wick and Neo and
The Matrix.
or even like Constantine.
I've
Like that's one of my
seen The
favorite
Matrix.
movies of him is. Have you ever watched The Matrix on acid? When he used to come over to my old apartment all the time, like I did that for like
sounds
a week
terrifying.
straight, and it just makes you question everything in like the best way. You know, it's healthy for the young developing.
It sounds
mind
scary. We
to
did watch
get
Hellboy on
psychosis.
mushrooms that one time. That was cool.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Like we took these mushrooms, and then we're watching Hellboy, and it's just the intro scene, and he just starts laughing hysterically, and there's just like these Nazis, and then all of a sudden he starts crying, and I'm just like, what's going on? He's just like, I saw God, and I'm like, you
That
saw
wasn't
it?
then.
No, it was.
No.
You're like, I saw God's dick.
No, that was after. There was this. Okay, look, whoa, let me fast forward here. It was the scene where Hellboy.
He remembers when he saw God's penis specifically.
Okay, because Hellboy, great movie. Shout out to Ron Perlman. Secondly, because he's the one that created that movie. But
Hellboy by Ron Perlman.
no, it was a scene where Hellboy. It's towards the end of the movie, actually, not the beginning. Thanks.
I'm sorry, psychedelics are just one fucking blur.
Hellboy has his horns growing out. They're like trying to open the gate to the big monster thing, and he rips his horns off and he shoves it in that dude's chest. And the dude's like, "You have killed me, but by killing me, you have created a god." And when he said that, I was just like, and I closed my eyes and I saw that it was.
You became
what
a
I'd
tool
And he
been
just
album cover.
waiting
he
for.
came back and whatever
I saw
time.
like that spectral, like the same spectral kind of.
And he said, "I saw the dick of God," and I'm
poster.
like, "Just the tip." He's like, "Just the tip." And then we go outside, and it's pouring down rain, and you know, I've taken
Forgot about
hallucinogens
that.
before. Like, I don't know about him at this point, and it's pouring down rain. He's like, dude, come on, we're just gonna run out in the rain. It's gonna feel great. And I'm like, no.
It's like
I've done
40
drugs
degrees
before. Like, that's gonna
outside.
suck. So he runs into the middle of the cul-de-sac, full sprint, gets out into the middle, looks to his left, look to his right, looks up, just head straight down, puts his arms down, and just starts walking back, all slumped over like a kid that just got his fucking balloon popped. Gets back, and he's just like, you were right. I'm like, you're cold, huh? I'm like, yeah. Pretty wet, huh? Yeah. I'm like, you need a towel? Yeah. And we just go back inside, and then I just proceed while he's drying off to take all the Taco Bell hot sauce in his house and just hide it throughout the entire house. I'm talking washer, dryer, oven.
I got sauce. I was finding those packets for an entire year.
Toaster, just every spot in the house, like tires, his pee bottles, like anything that was in the house. They had one of those vents by a bathroom, you know, where you pull it down. And, like, it just, like, opens up, and I'm like, hey, Nick, come here. Like, what does this do? And he pulls it open, and every time, like,
Rain,
sauce would happen, I'd just be like, it's the most, like, pleasant prank I think I've ever done. Because every time it would happen, I'd just be like, oh, you just got sauce, bitch.
I shit you not, we were finding them up to the day that we moved out of that house.
A year later.
We moved, I think it was the dryer, and there was one behind the dryer just sitting there, and it said on the packet, it said, I'll wait for you. Oh,
dude, I got him so good. It was just perfect.
Taco Bell packet skit.
Because, I mean, it's such a harmless prank. Like, you can't get
He got
that
Springerly
mad.
because he put one in the fucking toaster oven. And Springerly didn't look. He just like threw his shit in there and turned the toaster oven on.
Oh no!
Fucking blew up.
And the thing is, like, I got Spring a couple times, so they're finding these hot sauce packs for like a year and a half, and all they can hear every time they set them or find them is just me just being like, you got sauce, bitch. It's like this faint whisper of a ghost. Just
Every
like...
time I found one, I was just like, God damn it, Andy.
So another movie I saw.
That's a segue.
I saw a movie called Dragged Across Concrete.
I feel like you brought
That
this
sounds
one
like
up,
it's
or
about,
somebody
like,
else brought
spousal
this up.
abuse.
I've heard that name recently.
It's by the same director as the movie called Bone Tomahawk and a movie called Brawl in Cell Block 99. Have you heard of those?
No. Somebody said Dragged Across Concrete recently. I don't remember who it was. It might have been you, but I don't think we've talked since
Maybe.
that night.
Anyway. Yeah, no, it's like Vince Vaughn and Mel Gibson, who's been all but ostracized from Hollywood until this. Play
Alexa, Throw the Jews Down the Well.
So my country can be free.
So it's them and they play corrupt police officers. He's still laughing at the Borat joke.
I'm sorry to get like off what you're saying, but the things lately that Sacha Baron Cohen has been doing to like politicians, like getting them just like, oh my god, have you seen those things recently? Well,
No, I haven't seen his new show.
He'll get actual politicians to do just like absurd things. He'll like act like he's like from Iraq and he's like training them with like anti-terror, you know, and like you gotta like run up and scream like, you know, fuck the Muslim, and like he's just getting like actual politicians to like do these things. Like if you like pulled it up, you'd just be like, oh, he's gotten people fired.
Yeah.
Like people that run our country just for like it's exposing their like blind racism, and it's just great.
Like a real life allergy.
Real life like stuff, like real life, like I mean mostly senators in Florida. Like, I'll say that. But, like, it's just, like, actual, like, I highly recommend
That's
it to
funny,
anyone.
and I will look it up.
It's called Who is America, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But Dragged Across Concrete.
Yeah, so this this director, this filmmaker, like his style is like really it's really like 70s exploitation genre movies. So like really violent, really like blank face, just like brutal shit. Like Brawl in Cell Block 99 was his last one, and it's like Vince Vaughn plays
Wait, he was in that one too.
He was in that one too. Plays this guy who like he starts dealing drugs, and he has to do this like big run, and then gets caught by the FBI, and then he goes to prison, and then it's like this prison movie where he's like got to work his way into solitary confinement so he can kill one specific guy, so that his bosses let him off, and everything is super sadistic, like very on-screen bloody violence. So this new one is about him and Mel Gibson.
Arousing.
Yeah. The new one is him and Mel Gibson are cops who are caught on video,
just
like
anti-Semitic cops.
Yeah, actually. Yeah. I mean, Mel Gibson is
just playing himself.
He kind of is.
It's just a Jack Black
like,
of anti-Semites, you know.
they like caught on video, like assaulting somebody that they're gonna arrest with excessive force, and so they're kicked off, and then like they both need to make money because they're poor, so they are gonna do a heist.
Sounds like cops.
Yeah, classic cops, and it's 2.5 hours. It is like way too long.
Does anybody get crucified?
No. So, but there's a lot of, just really fucking great action sequences, but otherwise it's really dry. Brawl in Cell Block 99 is on Amazon if you want to check that out.
Okay.
That might be more your speed.
Definitely, yeah.
It's really slow and like kind of dry, but the violence is out of control.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like very
if you like
violent.
the movie we watched, I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore.
Yeah.
It's kind of got that
Okay.
kind of thing. The Saulnier, what's the guy's name who directed that one?
I don't feel
His actor. Yeah, it's the actor from the Jeremy Saulnier movies. Green Room and the other ones.
Macon Blair.
Yeah.
Macon Blair.
Yeah, it's kind of got that like gritty.
Okay,
intense,
yeah, I definitely like
Yeah.
those. I also like Blue Ruin.
Yeah,
a lot.
It's kind of like that, but like stretched out. Like
But,
yeah.
All right. Yeah, those were they weren't particularly long movies. They seemed like they were long just because of there's kind of this lull almost in the middle.
Yeah.
It's just very like the word I'm like it is kind of lulling, I guess.
Yeah.
This would be, but at the same time there is this chain of events and there are actual things happening, but like sometimes it can just kind of be. I don't know, it just seems sleepy for some reason.
Yeah.
They're still great movies.
Yeah, that's exactly what these movies are like.
And that reminds me, you're talking about I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore. One of the things I wanted to talk about is this now crossbreeding of genres. A lot of the things that Elijah Wood has worked on in the past couple of years have been horror. And he usually writes in a couple jokes here and there. You talked about you went and saw Us.
Is it just like the scary reality of being that short?
Can relate. Anyway, you said you went and saw Us just a couple days ago. You got Jordan Peele, who is known as a comedian now, doing and directing these really like hit horror. Well, one hit horror movie.
No, this is a hit already.
Is okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I mean, it looked creepy as hell.
I didn't feel like it was very scary. It was. It didn't.
Is there really a scary movie in today's day and age, though? I feel like we're so desensitized. I haven't seen anything that's necessarily scared me while the movie's on. I mean, sure, you still have those concepts, but I feel like most horror movies for me, they're frightening after.
Part of Hereditary was terrifying to me.
I've just never seen a horror. I mean, maybe it's just because I'm a little psychopath, but it's just like I've seen things
I'm
as like
horror
a child,
fanatic.
and I'm not even a horror fanatic, but it was just kind of like someone's dying, you know, it's a ghost.
Yeah, well,
hey.
we're all kind of the same age. We grew up in
like,
the age of the internet with the super gross things like eFucked and Intensity and all these websites that had these really horrible.
Grown up with this? As if,
Well, I did. I don't know about you guys.
But I only discovered eFucked recently.
I mean, I was watching videos of guys getting their arms chopped off with machetes when I was 12, but I don't know about you.
Lively
but I was really just
stuff.
desensitized to gore at that point. So like the gore factor of horror movies, it doesn't scare me. If anything, I'm like, cool.
No, gore doesn't scare me either.
I feel like
no.
when it crosses over into things that can be relatable or maybe even plausible in your own life, or maybe your own like religious beliefs, like things that like I'm not a religious person at all, but I grew up like Catholic, so sometimes like the specific like demonology things, like specific experiences like that you may or may not have shared. I don't know if you believe in it or not. But
or
just
a real life event like that's Hereditary played on that a lot. It was much more surrounding this family drama, and there are these things that happen within the family that are real life terrifying scenarios where it's like I don't even know how I would handle that.
Oh yeah,
and that was a big part of the psychological of that film.
And have you guys ever seen like American Horror Story? So I had like one of those situations where it felt like I was getting into like the intro of American Horror Story about 2 weekends ago, but it was more like funny to me because I'm going out to my buddy Brad's like property in like Steelville. Like we're pulling up and there's like this like girl like just like sitting on this swinging bench just like rocking. And he's just like, you know, just let you know like my sister's like autistic, you know, and I'm like, it's okay, I am too. And they get out, you know, and she's just like sitting there like just like kind of like muttering to herself, like rocking on the bench, like in the middle of nowhere, and she's like, "Hi, my name's Abby. What's your name?" And I'm like,
"This is where I die."
I'm like, okay, like, you know, I'm suicidal every day. Like if I die, like so what? But I just don't want to die around a bunch of Hoosiers. I feel like that's like just like the number one thing, you know. I go inside, like everybody, of course, is fat. You know, like, really, like, fat. Except their stepdad, who is just... I mean, I thought he had been to prison. Like, obviously, he's got, like, face tattoos and everything. And, like, I shake his hand, I shit you not, he's got 4 fingers. And I'm just like, I look at my buddy Brad, I'm like, did he not have all his fingers? He's like, yeah, dude, like, for sure. He actually, like, used to have, like, a flipper. But after, like, the surgery, you know, he's just got, like, 4 fingers now. Which he's like, I don't even know why he got rid of that. Because, like, I would think like he'd be like great at swimming, and there's like a river right over there, so like why would you get rid of that shit, you know? And I'm just like, okay, you know. And then like,
thanks for having me over.
Like, thanks for your TED Talk. And like we go and he like we're supposed to throw like an event at his like property. They got like 80 acres, this river, and they got this like super cool like iron cave. And I'm like, okay, this is like dope. It's like a man-made dynamite cave. And he's like, yeah, this like town's got like a horrible history. I'm like, here we fucking go. Like, retarded girl, flipper boy, horrible histories. I'm like, what happened? He's like, yeah, in like 1850 there was like a huge flood. Like my whole property used to be this town, and they brought everybody into this like iron cave, like 200 people and the cattle. And it turns out, you know, iron caves are super conductive to electricity. It was a really bad thunderstorm. Lightning struck the cave, and everybody and all the livestock just died in the cave, just like your computer. And
no, it's on. It's just falling asleep.
So that's where we're gonna throw some events. You know, like where the ghost of like 200 people at least remain. Like it was like a Civil War battlefield. Which, I mean, like in America, I feel like always like it's just like the weirdest history and stuff is just tied to those Civil War things. And whether you believe in like spirits or demons or not, there's always some questionable stuff going on there. Like whether you see like a body apparition or just someone that's fucked their sister, like it's interesting, like to say the least.
So horror and comedy.
When you mentioned Hereditary, as far as stuff that is scary in horror movies, when you're talking about Hereditary, I think that's what makes that sort of the consummate contemporary horror movies, like is dealing with like trauma as the horror. And I feel like if you go back through history, you can always trace like the fear of the time to the most popular horror movies.
What do you mean by
Okay.
that?
Yeah.
So like this is
Carrie.
Carrie.
No,
I think
no, like I'm talking like 80s Carrie, like Prom Night. You know, it's a horrible fucking
that movie came out in
everybody-
1978.
70,
I-
80, what?
I have
Still though.
I can see how it's terrible. It's
This
2
is-
years before the 80s. So like,
But you get what I'm saying though? Like Prom
I know
was
what you're saying.
Prom was a prominent
I
thing.
have a like long theory about this
Okay,
this
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
This is sort of my like this is part of what I wrote some of my final papers in college about was the evolution of horror movies, which makes me sound like a fucking nerd. Anyway, but like I think if you look at like the decades, the 50s, communism, Red Scare. You have a lot of movies about monsters,
Big
aliens,
mutant ants.
body snatchers, people secretly invading your community. The 60s, more like nuclear stuff, a little bit more. Godzilla.
You're approaching the Cold
so
War.
you're just saying it's more like
kind of.
propaganda infused with like the horror films?
I wouldn't say it's propaganda.
Well,
I
maybe
think
in that
it's
era,
reflective.
But I want
In
to hear
that
this.
era,
I want to
yeah.
hear. I wanna
Yeah,
hear this.
I think the 60s is more of a nuclear thing, or at least the early 60s is.
Like
because
Cold
the
War
60s
inspired.
Yeah, Cold War, big part of this.
Yeah.
I mean, if we were alive in the 50s, I think that would be something on our minds almost every day, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the nuclear destruction.
I think it's back on our minds though. Like,
Yeah.
nowadays, you
Yeah.
know, like
True.
definitely.
True that.
Anyway, so
Technically, the Cold War never ended.
whoa,
Did it ever?
it just got really cold. It just got colder.
Oh, it's so
Yeah.
cold
the
now.
coldest war.
I'm so cold.
Ice baby.
Yeah.
So yeah, like the early 60s, I would think about like The Birds, Alfred Hitchcock. The birds are like a natural force. It's sort of like the environment, nature rebelling against people.
It's also a popular element nowadays again too.
I'll come back
Yeah.
around to that, but I want to hear this. I want to hear what
Um,
you got.
Yeah, and then also Godzilla is a lot like that. I mean, Godzilla being a Japanese movie, it doesn't relate to our
The
American
radiation
perspective.
giant monster.
But yeah, but like the monster is the environment attacking us because we've attacked the environment.
Oh.
And Godzilla himself is like this very specific characterization of like things that remind people of nuclear destruction. Like his growl is made from like sounds of like lions, but also like steel twisting, like buildings being blown away, like destruction. And he has the atomic breath, and he was created by nuclear weapons. It's very very much like linked to nuclear stuff.
Triumph.
Yeah.
By the late 60s, you get into the counterculture. I think Night of the Living Dead is a good example of that period. The zombies sort of represent the country being at war with itself.
Okay.
So Vietnam is kind of intertwined with that.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's how people read that. And then in the 70s, you sort of started getting like the more like depressing, like darker stuff. Things started to get more violent because, I mean, also partially because of New Hollywood. Like that's when they established the rating system, so you could make more violent movies.
Yeah.
And I think in the 70s, that's when Halloween and Texas Chainsaw Massacre and this stuff, which is about the enemy being in
Slasher
America.
flicks and being murder.
It is in
on
your
the
neighborhood.
loose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is happening here, like right now. Like it's not an external thing. It is like Texas Chainsaw Massacre is literally about like, you know, those gas stations you pass on the highway. What if that was ran by this dude who fucking kills people and eats
Murders
them?
you.
And then Halloween is literally like, hey, we all live in a safe suburban neighborhood supposedly, but what if that house was actually?
And what about Nightmare on Elm Street?
So now you're getting to the 80s.
Okay, that's what I was-
So the 80s being just generally more commercialized, the Reagan era. It is about, and this is what Star Wars kind of brought on film. Star Wars was kind of partially this merchandising
Star
thing.
Wars isn't a horror.
I'm not saying it's a horror movie.
I
I'm
know.
just saying. I'm just saying Star Wars is like the first '80s thing, because
After this, I want to touch back on Star Wars, but keep going. Like,
okay, we'll go back to the Star Wars. But yeah, Star Wars is like, it was so like into characters and like images and icons. So like making merchandise for Star Wars was really obvious. Like the action figures sold really well, and like Star Wars became the first thing where it was like movies are products in some ways. They can be used to make money. So in the 80s, when everything becomes way more conservative economically, with Reaganism and all that, like movies kind of reflect that too. You also see like so Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street and the Halloween sequels. Who's being killed in those movies? Promiscuous teenagers who do drugs, just say no. Who's dying are the people who are transgressive. It's a conservative movement there.
Gotcha.
So
they were high, so they died.
yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Let that be a lesson to you, Andy.
Hey,
and like a
I
lot
haven't
of
overdosed yet.
like a lot of 80s stuff, by the 90s everybody was really tired of it. They're like, this is bullshit. We don't like, this is commercial stupid stuff. So 90s horror becomes Scream. And Scream kind of addressed like, we know
so
all
much
the
of that in
rules.
the third grade. Like, I don't know why that movie was just hilarious to me.
Scream?
Like,
Scream?
yeah, just like I don't know why it was just like I don't know if I'm.
Well,
just
that's why they made
fucked
Scary
up.
Movie, because it was a fucking
Yeah,
joke.
you know,
right?
I thought it was just hilarious. Like to me, like it was not scary in any sense.
No, that's what he
at
was
all.
saying.
Yeah,
We've gotten to
it-
the point of we know the rules of horror movies now,
Yeah.
and we can predict how this is going to go down.
Well,
Exactly.
the original title of Scream was Scary Movie.
I mean, Scream is just like the NASCAR of horror. Like, another left turn. Like, you know exactly what's about to happen.
Well, I think that was
Like,
the commentary. It was,
yeah.
it was postmodern, like there's like that scene where Jamie Kennedy is like literally explaining like, no, see, this person can't die because whatever, and you know, like
because they know.
yeah, and they're watching Halloween and analyzing it, you know. And then I think the step after that would be Saw, because Saw was like
more violent, little more
way more gory, way darker. Like, and I think people often read that as a response to 9/11. Actually, like, if once you have seen this very real horror on television, like real stuff, it activated people to
Has
say,
elevated.
And no,
I needed something
and no joke,
more.
just my like fucked up personality from my childhood. Like I saw I didn't. I was in third grade, so I feel like I didn't process it. I
You
thought
couldn't have been because I was in second.
no. No, it was first grade.
I
You're
remember
right.
the day
You're
that it
right.
happened. I was sitting at home and I saw it on TV, and I went into my classroom and I was like, "Did you guys see the towers that fell down?" Because
I was just, like, tight.
I didn't know.
Like I didn't know what it was. Like,
I
I thought
realize
it was
the
a
significance of it.
Yeah, no, I had no idea. I'm like, Mom, look, that like an explosion. She's like, no, that's like not okay at all. And I'm like, I had no idea. Like, you
Yeah.
know, I'm like 7. I'm just
Yeah.
like, I just see like an airplane crashing into a
You're
building.
like,
You know?
"Wow."
Yeah, no, exactly. Because you're so, even as a 7-year-old, you're so desensitized to everything at that time period where it's just like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was 6, and I don't really remember the day of at all. I remember like afterwards, because my birthday is September 1st. So like I remember just being like, man, everyone,
Wow, this really ruined my birthday.
this. Well, I mean, it wouldn't have happened yet.
What a
I mean,
national
I'll
trash.
always remember a pause in class before I gave a shit about like school. Like I was always getting suspended and stuff like at a young age. So I would if we got a break, I'd be like, yeah, stick it in my brain.
But yeah, I mean, so Saw kind of gave way to that torture porn thing, Hostel and Human Centipede.
Almost like borderline
and-
snuff film.
Yeah, really, really intense, gory stuff. So now it's kind of up for grabs still, I think. I don't know how to read it now.
Yeah.
I think Get Out is important.
Yeah.
Maybe Get Out's a good example of like what's happening. I think socially informed
Get Out, and also what
horror
they did,
movies.
like we were talking about with Hereditary, and also they had the series on Netflix, Haunting on Hill House.
Yeah.
Where they play on that deep trauma.
Yeah.
On these intertwining relationships, and they really form on the relationships between the family members and their traumas and how it affects their.
Mm-hmm.
Which is in a sense like a byproduct of everything that's happened in like past generations now, you know, like I mean,
Well, I think everybody's hyper aware of their identity and their problems, and like the internet communication is way more advanced. We all are very aware of each other's like issues, or like we're a lot more open now because people can talk about it all the time.
I mean, like the development of like
saying
human psychology and like their understanding. Like, it used to just be a thing. Like, you'd spank your kid, like you'd get the shit knocked out of you by your parents, and that was just a normal thing. And now we kind of realize that can just cause
definitely
like
condemn it as a society.
Yeah.
Even though it still happens, but you were saying you don't really know where it's going now. I would say my guess would be kind of moving towards that. It's definitely much more psychological. We're looking for new it's about new things that are new.
Yeah.
That you haven't seen before, you can't predict, because that was the flaw in there with like Scream.
Yeah.
We've gotten to the point where everything is predictable. Now we really want to play on your psyche. We really want to give you something that is either A, super relatable to the point where it's deep and traumatizing, or you just don't know what the fuck's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
that is scary because it's new.
Yeah, psychological and social fears, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, it's gone less from like the physical aspect, like down to like the extreme mental, and just like.
But you can definitely add in elements of physical into it, but yeah.
Like
at least the good horror movies are doing these things, because the bad ones are stuck in the past. But I also think at the same time there is some element of like. Whereas Scream was the postmodern thing, I think there's a lot of movies that are actively acknowledging the history of horror, or like trying to like play into like things that we do expect, but then just having fun with it. Like It Follows. You saw It Follows? Right?
I never saw It Follows.
Did you see The Guest?
I did watch The Guest on a recommendation from you, I think, actually.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it very much.
See, but like that movie was like. I felt like that movie was really like playing into like a lot of stuff we were familiar with in some ways, like the sort of 80s like slasher movie kind of like tropes and ideas, but played
he's following them through the thing and they're running away, like
stuff
hiding,
like that.
And they're like, he's like, I'll find you.
Yeah, very like kind of Freddy Krueger like slasher type stuff. But in a way that was like fun because it was sort of it was still original, but it was
modern.
It was
with guns.
Yeah.
And a trained specialist. Another one part of the moving forward with, and this actually goes back. This I told Andy when he brought up something that I wanted to come back to this. Because I was talking to him about First Reformed.
Yeah.
At the bar, which is not technically a horror movie.
But it is
scary. Fucking scary.
Yeah.
And it's in that realm of real life things that are happening, like real life issues.
Yeah.
That one of them being environmental hazard. That movie scared the fuck out of me.
Yeah.
That movie fucked me up. Like, really, I don't think I've ever seen a movie that had that kind of impact on me.
I mean, to a lesser sense, like a movie in a similar sense, like it's not a horror film at all, but it's just like sort of like a fair warning. Like, I mean, I know you both have seen like Interstellar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like if you think about like our farming practices today in like a modern world, and just like the complete like unsustainability of like the human race right now, and how, at least in our country, I'm not sure about other countries, we just have all these political officials that are just so blatantly like unaware of the effects of the things that we're doing, and have no concern whatsoever about like the long-term consequences, just because they're getting like $1 or $2 in their pocket, and that's one of those movies that makes you think, we can have these more dust bowls, like, outward farming if we don't switch to vertical. Like, that's really like the horrible thing that's gonna like collapse the human race, like if we keep on this pathway. And that's like what's truly like scary to me. Like, I have a son right now, and he probably won't see it, but like his grandson, like life is going to be significantly different, and we're at that kind of turning point where we either change for a better, or we like stick to what we're doing right now, and we just watch like full societal collapses, where you have like disaster style movies like
2012.
Yeah, no, like things like that, like The Day After Tomorrow. Like, those are the horror movies that could actually happen.
Geostorm.
Shout out to Geodude. He was
Geodude, that was a good Pokemon.
He was in that movie.
Dude, look. Like,
I have a solution
Geodude
for
Storm.
environmental
I'm about to
hazard,
trade my
and that's better
Graveler.
horror movies.
What's up? Hey, shout out to a lesser appreciated Pokemon though right now. This goes out to my dude Alakazam. I'm gonna say that like people don't give him a lot of love. There's not a lot of Alakazam plushes. There's not a lot of Alakazam.
Didn't you have an uncle named Alakazam?
Yeah, like my uncle Ali.
Ah, yeah.
Albert Akazam.
But can we go back to like Star Wars for a second in the sense like
I really have to go to the bathroom.
that's fine.
You can go if
All
you
right.
want.
We'll put that
Keep
in the
rocking
pod.
on this.
Okay,
in
so
the cast.
He's
Put that
peeing
in your
right now.
pod and cast it.
But Star Wars was always like interesting for me in like the sense that they had this like constant pull of like good and evil, and I feel like the influence that people don't really talk about is like, you know, they always talk about like the balance in Star Wars, and it kind of relates back to like the Eastern philosophy of like Taoism, in the sense where they just have this constant balance of good and evil. And if you really get down to the root of everything, that like good and evil, it's just like necessarily like a concept. Like one can't exist without the other, you know. And like at the end of the day, it's just all relative.
Well, they
you
teach
know?
you that, and to kind of sorry, a little brain fart there. To relate to what you're saying, they teach you in chemistry and in science that nature favors chaos.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that kind of balance in Star Wars, where a lot of the time the bad guys are winning, and it seems very bleak for the good guys, but they somehow they come through, and they triumph. They triumph over evil for a little bit,
No,
and then evil's
definitely-
like bam again.
But it just always like restarts back to that thing. And I don't know if you ever played when you were growing up the Star
Skin
Wars.
flute.
Yeah, no, I mean we all masturbated, but the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic game, like touching back on that Taoism, I don't know if you ever played that game, but like they had different segments where like different characters would interact with each other in different scenes, and you had this section where you had this old Jedi that you picked up in the jungle, and he had what becomes called like a gray Jedi. He was like neutral, and on that track of like Taoism, he didn't really care how things happened one way or another. And you were with this Republic soldier, and he was just talking about like, you know, we gotta stop the Sith, we have to, you know, things will like change forever if we don't. And he had like one of the greatest points that I've ever seen in any game. He just mentions the fact, you know, like, you know, right now, you know, evil could triumph, you know, evil could not. But in about 400 or 500 years, like after the fact, like things will change, like things will go back again and things will reverse. Like just don't for a second even think that just because like this war that you're fighting in, just because you're in it, is the most important war that there ever will be. Like they always have these interesting points, like in Star Wars, where it actually takes you on like these slightly deeper philosophical pathways, where it's like it always brought up a great point to me, you know, like you're so focused in your everyday life, like think of all the great wars that have happened where that general on one side or the other thought that single-handedly like this would change the course of humanity forever, and it didn't, because just in 1,000 years, maybe 2,000, things like evil could triumph, like what's perceived as evil, but good will turn over again. Like good could triumph for a little while, but evil will find a way again. It's just this constant rotating balance of events.
Because war never changes.
I mean, it
Fallout.
Yeah, he got it. He got the
I mean,
fucking...
but it's just a constant.
Oh,
it's just a constant
the
rotating
reference.
shift of reality, though. For real, like nothing is going to stay the same. Like everything is always changing, and it's just like a great way to just.
This is a very Zen kind of philosophy.
Well, yeah, that's what I was talking about. Like, well, you went to the bathroom. How like Star Wars has a lot of Taoist aspects to it. We were talking about like the push and pull, like the good versus evil, that like constant struggle, like the balance that they always like refer to, and that's why I wanted to go back to it, because they do get on those deep philosophical influences, and I can't help but think that George Lucas was somehow influenced by those Eastern philosophies, because a lot of times in America you don't really see that too much, especially in like mainstream religion. Like people don't pay attention to that, but if you go into Buddhism and Taoism, they more talk about just like letting things go, like letting things be as the way that they are, because it will all like come back again, you know. You have these cycles, like these ripples, like the butterfly effect, like things might be bad now, but they'll inevitably become good again, no matter what you do or what you choose to do in life.
Sorry to interrupt
I mean,
a way
go
better
on.
conversation, but we referenced Fallout. I actually just found this out the other day. You know who did the narration for Fallout? We were talking about him earlier.
My dad?
Andy's dad,
Oh.
Ron Perlman,
Oh yeah.
is his dad.
Yeah.
He also did the
Pearl
narration
Ronman?
for Pearl Ronman,
Andy Miamii Pearl Ramen.
aka the original Hellboy. That's your dad.
Wow, and then it all ties back into God's dick.
I think, yeah, that's really interesting. That sort of Taoist Zen connection with Star Wars. I feel like George Lucas's original stuff, like if we're just talking about New Hope, the first movie, I feel like that movie is really it is kind of straightforward. Like it takes that hero's journey concept.
Mm-hmm.
Who wrote that? It was Campbell, something Campbell, Joseph Campbell. I think it's Joseph Campbell. But I think it's so often that he like pushes into just like I think it's kind of a flaw in some ways with the way that he's actually written the movies, because he talks like we're supposed to bring balance to the Force, like the Jedis are supposed to bring balance to the Force, but it's like if you eliminate all the Sith, isn't that's not balanced?
And
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Where the Gray Jedi comes.
No, exactly. And the Grey Jedi, like from just a strictly like philosophical point of view, they just like walk that line. And you know, like sometimes they do things that might be considered evil. Sometimes they do things that would be considered like overtly good, but they're the only people that are just truly like they hit that Zen.
Okay. Anyway. Yeah, that's
Do I need to
that's
get
cool.
the fucking sign out?
No, I know what you're saying. I'm just laughing at the fact that you're doing it. Yeah. Shout out Star Wars. Shout out George Lucas.
Can we touch on
Shout out
comedy for
Kylo
a little
Ren.
bit though? We've been like a lot of horror this whole time.
What?
Like,
Or
I was done.
I don't care how long it goes.
yeah, well,
personally.
yeah.
I mean-
just a little bit over,
Maybe to punctuate the horror conversation, Us was really good. It was probably the blockbuster experience of the year. I think.
in March.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I
yeah,
don't know what else is
mean-
gonna come out. Maybe Detective Pikachu. I'm kind of excited for that movie.
Yeah, that's
I
the
love Ryan
scariest thing of all. Is that
Uh,
fucking animation that's going on right now. Like, oh my god.
But it
Like,
was.
why are they all hairy?
Well, I mean,
They
Pikachu is a mouse.
Yeah, but everything.
Is
like
he?
Charizard's
Yeah.
a lizard.
I never knew that.
You know, like I don't know. I feel like there's not been a solid anime-ish type movie that's gotten
now-
the justice in a live action, and I don't know what Japan's relationship with America is on that, or like if but they just keep fucking that up. Like, I have not seen a live action version of anything that was animated that I've been like, oh my god. You know?
I think it's just too difficult to
I'm
translate
not
between
stoked
cultures.
for any of the Disney live actions.
I don't think it is. Every weeb in America has an opinion on how to make that better than every filmmaker that just so happens to get the chance to do it. And, you can go on any Reddit forum and find a better story. And you can go, like... I mean, if Avatar was a thing 10 years ago, what the fuck is Detective Pikachu's animation doing? It's Pokemon. It's one of the best franchises of all time. One of the most successful, like... Put it to you this way. I am 25. I got my first Pikachu game while I am 5. They are still making Pikachu games. My son is playing Pokemon games now. Like, they have the money to do the animation properly if they wanted to. Like,
Probably
there's,
have enough money
there's
to
no way
make a real life
Nintendo has
Pikachu.
less money than James Cameron. Like, they could take
think,
the time to do it if they wanted to. They just choose not to. They try to go for these money grabs, and it's more hurtful than helpful. I mean, like, think about, like, the DBZ or, like, the Death Note. It's just like, oh my god. Like, I would genuinely rather live in a horror film than spend $10 on a Tuesday night at the discount movie theater, you know, to go see that. Like, it's just terrible.
Well, everything is terrible.
Yeah, but
I don't know if you're...
I get what you're saying. I am interested in the Pikachu movie.
I mean, I'm gonna see it.
Yeah,
Am I gonna like it? No.
No, I think it's, to me it looks. I mean, animation and live action, it's virtually impossible to do correctly, I think.
But explain Avatar. Like, it's still one of the best animated...
Are you talking about James Cameron's Avatar or The Last Airbender?
No, like James Cameron's Avatar.
Okay.
Like, Pokemon's new animation is like a half step compared to that, at least. And how long ago did that movie come out?
2009, 10 years ago.
I'm trying to think.
That's what I'm saying. Like, why isn't animation, like, on these movies, like, at that par, especially with companies that have that kind of money?
With the Avatar, it was people who are being mocapped, whereas the Pikachu is just completely CGI.
I mean, but even Jurassic Park 3 looks better than that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I don't want... There's like... It's very difficult. I mean, there's this... This is a very, like... You can get into some serious, like, film school discussions on what they call the picture plane. Which this is, like, the difference between the formalist and realist depictions of things. So, like, you could have a Pikachu that looks like a real mouse that is... Or, like, you know, I mean, it's not the size of a mouse or anything, but there's something, like, kind of wrong about it. Like, Pikachu is kind of a cartoon, and you kind of have... It has to have a cartoon quality.
It should look like an alien, more so than, like, a real mouse. It should look like... Okay, because think about it. Like, it's taking place in a completely different world.
It's probably more so the fact that it's 3D.
And, like,
that fucks it up. Because everybody's seen Pikachu as this 2D thing.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but everybody knows Pikachu as this 2D character.
But still, I mean, do you see what I'm saying with that?
I see what you're saying.
No, I totally get what you're saying. But if you take all of those, any Pokemon off of anything you've seen, whether it be the TV show, the movie, the video games, whatever, they've always represented them, short of Pokemon Stadium and Snap. They've shown them as these 2D characters. That's how they're animated. They're 2D.
Well, yeah, and, like, I'm not even saying that. Like, I get how the transition can be different.
It's weird to see them.
But they're just not
up.
spending the money that they could on that CGI and making it in a way that... Like,
I'm sure they spent plenty of fucking money on it. They're probably it's just poor execution more than anything.
And that's what I'm saying. It's like, I don't feel like there's really an excuse.
It probably doesn't even have anything to do with the money.
I mean,
it probably has more so to do with the team
and, like, who you choose to animate, and that's like what you spend on it. It's like you get back to the EDM, like, and just like disgusting animation. Like, there's this big artist called Excision, and he has had the same visual set for maybe 6 years now, with like the same songs going over and over again, and like fans just like absolutely love it, like, per se. But in the modern equivalent of, like, CGI and, like, animation, it's, like, the level, I don't know, of, like, a 2005 video game.
Yeah.
So, it's just, I'm super critical of that kind of
I'm going to watch the fuck out of the movie.
I mean, I'm going to watch it, but I just feel like they could do better.
Say the same I
think what they've done is they've made the real life, in parentheses, components look more cartoonish to match the CGI parts of the movie.
Yeah.
And I think, like, maybe it just, like, we've gotten to this point where, like, digital film or like digital filmmaking looks so real. Like, we're getting to this point where, like, it can't get much more real looking.
Have you seen any of Love, Death, and Robots?
No.
Fucking
good?
phenomenal. Jesus, wow. That's
Yeah, we
some of
just
the
watched
best
that the other
animation I've
night.
ever seen in my life. More like graphics, more so than animation. Like, I know it's a TV show, but compared to like some of the newer video games where you get that real cinematic experience,
we
like,
got
it's cool. It's
we
super
got
cool.
super drunk and watched that, and his old roommate Springerly, I don't know if you met him. He showed us that, and there was this episode where like this junkyard kind of like creature like assembled from all the things and like the junk, and like eventually became this dude's like pet, and like, yada yada. I won't get too in detail of the story, but it was funny. There was like a junkyard dog, and I walk outside and he's just taking a piss in the yard, and I'm just like, like, want to see a junkyard dog, man, but all I see is your dick. And then Springerly's dog had just hypothetically at the same time just escaped from the yard and just comes running across the street just like a junkyard dog from like the opposite direction of the house, and I'm just like, well, fuck me, I was making a dick joke,
and there it
then
is,
real
folks.
dog comes.
Remember, you can't always get what you want, but you'll find sometimes that
you'll get what
if
you
you try,
want.
you might just
Did we make this joke in the last episode, or are you trying to like
get it?
Oh, okay.
Sad we couldn't touch more on autism, but
The punctuation on this though is Us is a good movie. Check it out.
Yeah.
It was a packed theater. I have not seen a movie in a theater this full in a long time.
Okay.
I think there part of that makes it really fun because like seeing a movie with a ton of people who are really invested is cool. The downside is that half of them were on their phones and
when you get a big
trying
crowd,
to be
you get
mystery
shitty
science
people.
theater type people and like
that's the worst.
Like,
worst.
But I felt like it was a very Spielberg like
Level.
really like just super entertaining, but also very artistically inclined, awesome blockbuster movie. So
I'm gonna buy my own movie theater so I can go watch it without hearing popcorn.
Yeah, we talked about your
experience with
Hereditary.
Hereditary. Yeah.
That's just true deafness.
Def Jam Records. Check it out.
Okay, so
Vendetta.
anyway, shout out Andy Miamii, shout out Ron Perlman, shout out Bill Burr,
Shout out Alakazam.
shout out Alakazam,
Detective Alakazam, the sequel coming out.
shout out
2022.
Ryan Reynolds and
Okay, now I'm about
Pikachu,
it.
shout out
Nothing better than
Jordan
a bent up
Peele,
spoon.
shout out
Shout out Nikola Tesla.
shout out John Malkovich, shout out
John Cherry. Shout out.
Spalding.
Anybody with autism.
Bye.
Player, give me some brew and I might just chill. But I'm the type that like to light another joint like Cypress Hill. I still do be spit loogies when I puff on it. I got some bucks on it, but it ain't enough on it. Go get the S, the T-I-D-E-S. Nevertheless, I'm hella fresh, rolling joints like a cigarette. So pass it.